You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
What's up, Coaches Nation? This is Dr. Sheri with Daniel Fernandes. We are here today to unpack for you 3 critical components for you to think through for your next strategy session. Now, these might be things you're already doing or you're accidentally doing. And if we want to have the most impactful strategy session, meaning we want to have a strategy session that actually results in more paid clients, we want to be intentional about the things we do, not just let them accidentally happen. So we have 3 things we're going to talk about today that are going to be really important to think through and to have an intentional frame around. And so we're going to jump into that here in a moment. But first, we have a masterclass coming up that you will not want to miss. Daniel, can you share a little bit of details about that?
Yeah, we're talking all about that discovery strategy, intro session, whatever you want to call it, that first session you have with the client. Sometimes it's free, where you make the offer. So that masterclass will be, how do you do that? How do you deliver that session so that you actually can sell a coaching program? And that's going to be on October 16th, 1 p.m. Eastern time. It's a Monday. It's going to be amazing. If you are really wanting to dial up your game in the area of that first session with a client, then you should definitely tune in. And how do they tune in, Sheri?
So you can tune in if you are not a member of our Facebook group yet, the Coaching Mastery Community Facebook group. Become a member of the Facebook group. And we are actually going to broadcast it live in the Facebook group. But if you want to replay, we've got replay. So all you need to do, wherever you're listening to this, put #masterclass or reach out to us at support@Coaching Mastery Community, and we'll get you the link to sign up. Completely free. And we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to watch this, to grow, and ultimately make more money. Because if you're making more money, that means you're having a bigger impact.
Love it. And actually, that leads perfectly into what we're doing today, Sheri, which is we're talking about offers. And one of the biggest sticking points people have in their, I'm going to call it discovery session. You can call it whatever you want. Discovery sessions is making the offer. Maybe they don't know what the offer is clearly. Maybe they're not sure what kind of things would be good in their offer. Maybe their offer needs to be modified based on what happened in the session. And how do you make that offer? What are some good ways to frame those offers? So that we're going to talk about 3 things to think about when you make offers in those sessions today.
Yeah. So the first one that I often hear coaches talk about, and certainly I've had to go through this journey myself, is how am I gonna put together what I have to offer? I come from the therapy world. I'm a psychologist. And so in that world, what is typical is a session by session cost. And so I am very used to charging people per session. It's X amount of money per session. But when I jumped into the coaching world, there's this whole other thing called a package that is different than selling a single session. And it took me a while to really understand the value of why I might shift my own thinking into selling my coaching as a package, as a group of sessions together, versus selling them per session. Daniel, how do you do things?
Yeah, this is such an important transition. When I first started coaching, I was thinking about it like an hourly rate because I still had a job. And even when I quit my job, I was still in the what's my per hour charge? And then I'll just say hey, these sessions are 1 hour, so I'm going to charge you, whatever dollars per hour. And then I was just like, okay, great. And so it was really hard for me to get out of that mindset. So I was always doing something okay, 1 session would be this much, 3 sessions would be that much, 6 sessions would be that much. I was like, how many sessions do you want? And the thing is, the client doesn't know,
right?
They don't know what they want. They don't know what they need. They don't know what they want. They're looking to you to help them understand this process and this journey. So most of the things that require coaching cannot be done in 1 session. Otherwise, you'd have a discovery session and nobody would ever buy coaching because there would be nothing else to work on because you could solve everything in 1 session. If it was possible to solve your whole life in 1 session, that would be amazing, right? And we just charge a lot for that 1 session probably. But at the same time, you want to give people an experience of coaching. So after the session, you need to give them the vision of what it could be like to work together. That's the most important thing. And when you do that, all of a sudden there's a long-term opportunity to work together, because isn't it true that some of the things that came up in that session are going to take a longer time to solve? And if you don't have those things come up, you need to, as we did in our last podcast, think about how you get those things to come up. There's a whole landscape of their life. So bring up all the things, and you can't solve them all there. And you'll know that you could solve them over time together, right? And most of the time, that's the only person in their life that will actually help them solve these things. So it's pretty valuable. And so that's where you say, like, okay, so I think this is, we should sign up for a package of certain length of time or a certain number of sessions. I think time is a really good one, because it's like, this stuff will take 6 months to a year, probably, for a lot of clients. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. So you can offer, like, it'll be 6 months with me on a weekly basis, and that's part of the offer. And here's the price. It's not like, oh, you can buy one session at a time, because if you sell one session or even 3 sessions or even 6, how often do you have to renew? Oh my gosh, like the renewal conversation. And then that person has to be, maybe afraid of having to pay and pay and pay. Now, the challenge with that is, if you're a beginning coach, you don't have the confidence that you're going to give the value sometimes. And so you could do other things. You could say, like, hey, how about you put a deposit down? We'll do the first three sessions. And if you love what we're doing, pay the rest of it. And if you don't, then you can tell me, and that'll be it. And it'll just cost you the deposit. That way you at least get some money. And I just thought of that this morning while thinking about this podcast. I've never actually done a deposit method, but it could totally work. So like the package method is the most important transition as an early coach. If you can get your confidence up so you can offer long-term package, and the deposit method is one way to do that, then end up charging long-term. Because imagine if you could coach them for 6 months, after that 6 months, they're going to make progress in so many things, and they're probably going to renew at that point. Renewing a three session package is so hard.
Absolutely.
It's like, you didn't make progress. Of course you didn't. You only had 3 sessions.
Right. I mean, think about it. It's like working with a personal trainer for 2 weeks. And I'm like, yeah, my weight's actually going up. Well, that's because you're gaining more muscle. Well, like it's the psychology of it. The dropout rate, in my experience in psychology as a psychologist versus as a coach, the dropout rate for me is dramatically less as a coach selling a package, because the conversation in the beginning is already like they're making a commitment, and they understand there's a commitment, a 6-month commitment, a 6-month expectation. And, if you build into that, we're going to be kind of tracking progress and reevaluating and that sort of thing. They know they are well taken care of, and they're going to be, their trust in the process is going to be dramatically higher, because if you're selling 3 sessions, what's the process? Like, what process are they placing their trust in? If you're like, it's going to be 3 sessions, and then, well, I guess it didn't quite work yet, let's do another 3 sessions. In my opinion, you're setting yourself up for failure, because it's alluding to the fact that they are going to make progress in which they're not, and it just gets messy. So highly encourage you to think about whatever it is, that the type of therapy oh my gosh, I just slipped in my own mode. The type of coaching that you do, does it need 6 months or however many sessions? Does it need a year? Does it, like, whatever that is, sell that as like, this is the first round. This is the first step. This is the first part of the journey. It's going to take this long or this many sessions or whatever, but sell it as a package. I think you're going to be doing yourself a favor, but ultimately you're going to be doing your clients a favor, because you're setting their expectation up from the beginning that this is a process, a journey, and it's not a quick fix.
Yeah. And this is not a done for you thing. It's not like they hired you to build a website in 3 sessions. That might work. This is a transformational coaching journey, right?
Yeah.
Where they're gonna have to do some inner work, and they're gonna have to figure things out and make decisions about their life. So just like to clarify, this is about a transformational journey, not a specific, technical challenge, right?
Right.
So, and that could be part of your coaching, right? That could be like, depending on what your expertise is, you can offer different things, which brings me to the next point that we have, which is, like, what is your client actually talking about and feeling and perceiving and needing that you can help with, right? Like, and sometimes we get a client and they come in and we have this amazing discovery session and they want to continue. And then you offer them your standardized thing. Like, I have this thing that I do. Maybe it's my certification. Maybe it's this thing I learned, but it doesn't really apply to them in what they're asking for. And so it's just because it's your program. It's your program, and you have this like attachment to it. I think the thing we need to be attached to is, what is the program the client needs? So something I like to do is tell the client, well, these are the things we've said we want to work on. Let's run this program. What should we call it? Or if I have a good name in mind, I say like, hey, let's run this program, which I'll make up for the client because I want to make sure they understand that it's going to be super relevant and custom to them. And I may have a process in that procedure of delivering those sessions, but it's going to be for them. It's not just the process. It's very customized. And this is the perception that you want to create, that it's not about you and your process. It's about them and their progress, right? And the process will help. So like having a process can be good. Having a process can also be a handcuff. So it depends what you're trying to achieve. So frame the offer around the client's perceptions and needs. That's the way to make the right offer for the client. It's about the client, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a strategy session with a gentleman who had expressed that he really was interested in this one topic of fulfillment. And I don't have in my repertoire of like all the different sessions and, with high performance coaching and the stuff I've done in the past, I don't have a session specifically around fulfillment. And so I was like, well, this is an opportunity to, to create something.
Or a program. Do you have a program around fulfillment?
No, I know, but
right.
But as I was going through the session, I'm like thinking about like, of course I can help this gentleman, with kind of increasing the fulfillment in his life, because I do have a process. There's a framework, but it's just like, it's like plugging other things into that. But the important aspect is you understand what the client is wanting and looking for, what is their language, and use that language in the framework or use that language in the process that you're thinking about. Daniel, I love the fact that you said that you just like, what should we call this? When you said that, like my heart fluttered a little bit. And this is like clearly my own issues I need to work through about like, I want to look like I've got everything put together. So the fact that you ask the client, like, what would you like to call this program that we just created or whatever? I just think that's hilarious and kind of genius.
Well, this is a good question. So like with the fulfillment program, I would say like, what are the words that maybe he's using the word fulfilled over and over again. So maybe I'd say like, hey, what if we call this program the fully fulfilled program, a coaching program for you? It's like John's fully fulfilled program or whatever, or like come up with a name that like the fulfillment, something catchy that together you're like super excited about. Yeah. Also, not only does that tell the client what we're doing here, it tells them, hey, I've understood you, but also tells you what you're doing here. So every day when you're coaching this person, you're remembering the purpose of this program, what the client signed up for. And then what you can do with that, if like the idea behind this idea is to collaboratively co-create the journey together, because that's what you're doing in coaching. It's not you delivering a thing into the client. It's you're collaboratively figuring out together what moves the client forward and moving them forward together. So that process begins in the discovery session. It's not just about sales. You're co-creating from the beginning so they can know that that's what you're going to be doing with them. And even the name of the program could be co-created. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes I'll say like, hey, let's do this program. Here's what we're going to, sometimes I'll say that what you need is a blah, blah, blah program. And they're like, yeah, that's exactly what I need. I'm like, yes, because I just created a name for you. They may or may not need to know that, right? So, but sometimes it's even better if you just, like I do either way, depending on what I'm feeling in the moment. But co-create the future together. Do you want to continue? And let's continue. Here's the program. Should we name it? Should we fix it? It's okay. Like you don't know everything now because it's a journey. When you go on the journey, you don't know every little turn of the road.
Yes. And I want to highlight that because if you're a newer coach listening, I guarantee that there are some coaches right now that are like, what? There's no way that I would want to like have my potential client realize that I don't know what the next step is, or like I don't know exactly what we're going to be doing together. And that's okay. In fact, I think the better of a coach we get, the less we hold tight to our perceived path of how coaching is going to go. And we're able to have flexibility. I think this is the intersection of the science, which maybe is your framework, your structure, but the art. So the science and the art of coaching. The art is the flexibility. It's, what are you feeling in the moment based on what the client is giving you, and just, being able to do both. So you don't have to have it all figured out. So if this is the first time you're hearing that, take a deep breath and accept the gift that we're giving you, that you don't have to have it all figured out in the beginning. And you don't have to pretend like you have it all figured out in front of the client. You get to co-create it.
And the best way to remember that, like the easiest thing to do, you always have the safety of the client is in charge of their life. And the client knows way more than you know about their life. They have context. It takes you some time to get context in their life. And even after 3 years with somebody, I don't have full context of everything they know, right? I have ideas.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between coaching and advising. Some coaching engagements with your expertise, you can be an advisor to or a consultant, as long as you're clear on what the roles that you're playing for them are and they're clear. But with coaching specifically, the more coachy parts of it, when you get to a place where you don't know what to do, the client will have ideas. The client will have information and knowledge, right? Like you're the guide, but they're also the guide to themselves, right? They're your guide to them, right? And you're their guide to the journey, right? And so sometimes you need to know more. And express it.
Yeah. So I heard something the other day on a podcast that I was like shocked a little bit when I heard this. So we're big Alex Hormozi fans, love a lot of his frameworks around sales, all of that sort of stuff. So if you're not listening to him, highly encourage that he is on one of your, along with the Coach's Journey, that his podcast is also something you subscribe to. He said this the other day and I was like, what? He was talking about how he coaches himself, which I think is kind of a cool concept. I think it's an interesting thing that we could all grow from. But what he said is the reason he does that is because he has never, he's not had really a good experience with a coach. And he said this, he said, no coach understands my context and my life as good as I do. Therefore, they can never give me as good of advice as I do. He literally said this multiple times. So it tells me that his experience and his perception of what a good coach is somebody that can tell you what to do really well. And I was like, oh my gosh, he is really good at asking really powerful questions. But clearly he has not met somebody that has been able to ask him really powerful and thoughtful questions. So I just I know.
I'm like, oh man, we should really we should have a coach. We should coach him, or somebody should coach him so he understands the other side. I can't believe that at that level of success, he's not yet had a coach where he feels that so the thing I'm taking away from what you're saying, Sheri, is even really successful people need coaches who are not telling them what to do.
Yes, that's exactly right? Exactly.
And this is the thing about early coaching. When I started coaching, oh my God, did I want to give advice? Did I want to say, do this, do that. And I actually did a little Facebook Live about this in the community the other day when I was in Austin. It's moving from advising to coaching is an important skill, but also if advising is part of your package, that's a different question. If you have an expertise or experience in a specific area, that's different. But figuring out what the client wants and what the client needs to do, and the client knows the decisions they need to make, you're helping them clarify, you're helping them coach their own outcomes. So hopefully Alex will get a coach one day that will be someone who can say, who can say not what to do, but say the thing that prompts him to figure out from within what he needs to do.
Yes. And I fell into this trap for probably a good 6 to 7 years. I have a doctorate, Dr. Sheri. And so when people would come to me, I'm a psychologist. I am, I've got a lot of training. They would come to me, sit down, and maybe they wouldn't specifically say this, but they would be like, okay, Dr. Sheri, in all your infinite wisdom and experience and knowledge and education and blah, 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 what do I do now? How do I get out of depression? How do I be less anxious? How do I not have my next panic attack? How do I get out of PTSD? These were all ultimately the questions. And I totally took that on. I'm like, okay, I need to figure this out. What are they, and I really did a lot of telling people what to do. And there's a certain level of success with that. But it hasn't been until I shifted into coaching and really understood, oh, okay, so coaching is about asking questions. It's not about telling people what to do. It wasn't until I made that shift that I have realized how I have not helped my past clients as much as I could have, because I let them continue on with this perception that there is this hierarchy where I am the wizard behind the curtain that tells them what to do, when that's really not the most helpful or valuable or growth producing kind of environment. So I totally fell into that, and I see that now, and I'm working very hard at not doing that. Although I will tell you, my last, I had a coaching session a couple of days ago with a gentleman, an entrepreneur, And after the session, I was reflecting on it and I was like, oh my gosh, I told him what to do. Like, I mean, he was kind of in his position and like, so I'm like, well, here's an option. I didn't tell him but I was like, here's an option. So I was like, okay, well, so then what question could I have asked that could have elicited, because I saw a pattern, I was basing my answer on the pattern. So it's like, what I said wasn't necessarily wrong or off, but it could have been more powerful if I had asked questions for him to uncover that himself. So this is a journey, the coach's journey. This is a journey for us to continually improve and get better in how we interact and helping clients discover their own truths. Even if you see the truth, just like a kid, like if you see them and tell, like, don't do this, they're probably going to resist. But if you can create an environment where they learn that, then they're like, oh, I just learned this. And they're more likely to do that in the future.
Oh my gosh, love that. And actually, sometimes this has happened. This happened by accident before. And I looked like I was going to say something, and I said, and then I caught myself in one of those, like, and by the way, I still fall into advising sometimes. And sometimes it's actually intentional and sometimes it's not. But I have a session coming up today after this call, and I'm going to be like, this is my next level up. Is like, where is the advising warranted and where is it not? Because sometimes the client needs a little bit of a push.
Yeah.
So for example, we've been brainstorming for 10 minutes and they really haven't hit on anything yet. And sometimes would you like a suggestion? And then I'll follow it up with, you know what I'm going to say, right? And if they have an idea, like, come up with more suggestions, right? Because I might not even have a suggestion. Sometimes I'll just say, like, you know what I'm thinking, right? And then it's more of a prompt for them to think. And then what they say reveals kind of where their head's at. And so sometimes you get to this point where you're like, okay, we're going to spend the whole session not coming up with anything that's useful. I sometimes inject a little suggestion there. It's not usually totally necessary, but if you learn, if the client's just like in a loop and they can't get out, if they're just doing all talking, you need to interrupt and prompt the right questions to get them out of that loop, or maybe inject some information, sometimes. So those are all like intuitive, like choices that you can make in a session.
Yeah.
Ideally, you're not telling them, because most of the, like almost 100% of the time, if I make a suggestion, the client's like, no, that's not going to work.
I've already tried
exactly why. I'm like, you're right. So,
all right.
like most of the time, maybe not 100% of the time, but like 85% of the time, my suggestions are usually wrong. So yeah, I'll just recap what Sheri said. Point 1 about offers: frame as a package, not a session, on a session by session basis. Longer packages are better. Number 2, frame the offer around the client's perceptions and needs, not your thing. And now we're getting to point number 3, the third thing. We promised you 3 things about offers at the beginning. The third thing, what is the third thing? It's offers should be natural. They should come as a natural extension of the conversation. If it doesn't feel like the right time to make the offer, maybe it's not right time in the conversation to make the offer. You can sometimes do it in the first session, sometimes do it in the second session. I mean, the other week, I have a relatively new client. We've done about 8 sessions, and we had one session where it was a really good session, but we didn't actually get to where I wanted to get. We covered a lot of the pains. We didn't cover as much of the vision, and I wanted to keep on going. It didn't feel quite right to make the offer then, although that was my original plan. But I changed my plan, and what happened was I did a second session. At the end of that second session, the offer started feeling like it's a natural point to come in. Now that we've established this 2 sessions of discovery, and we have a little more vision in there, a little more of the struggles and the pains, now it's like, do you want to continue? And so this offer came pretty naturally. It's like, hey, did you like what we're doing today? Do you want to continue? And I didn't use those exact words, but pretty similar. And it should be a natural extension of the conversation. And honestly, I still work on making it more natural and letting go and releasing attachment. One of the big challenges of making it natural is, as coaches, we get so attached. Like, I need this client, I need this income. And the reason you feel like you need it is you're not disciplined about outreach, or you're not confident about your program and you're afraid that you'll run out of money. So you can fix those things by having more discovery sessions, and you can fix that problem of not having enough discovery sessions by having more outreach. And
you can fix that. And you can fix that by joining our $97 a month. You are going to get some amazing value out of a program that we have called
the Business Kickstart program.
Yep. Our coaching kickstart program, it's going to help you get your next 5 clients. And it goes over all of this stuff. It goes over how to better package things and how to have the strategy session and all that sort of stuff. So if you're needing some extra support, this is a super simple, low cost, no brainer way to kind of jump in. And then when you're ready to like hit it with all you got, we got a whole other thing that we can talk about after you join the Kickstart, but we want to get you
live trainings and the coaching chain and all kinds of things. So like for now though, join that Kickstart program. If you're liking this conversation and you want to like really commit to the process of having these discovery sessions and process of making these offers and staying in the game, because the thing that stops you is discouragement, right? And having this community to encourage you and to keep you going is a really important part. I wish this was there 10 years ago. Like I stopped so many times for so long. Like I spent months doing almost nothing because I got so discouraged with the rejections, whatever. But anyways, back to the point we're making. If you're having your outreach and you're continuing to make conversations, aim for like 100 conversations. And then if you're having those conversations and you run your discovery session, aim for natural offers, natural feeling offers. Just get to the point where it's like super clear that this is going to be valuable and they're clear on what they want and what's the struggles and all that. And you're clear on it. And you know what program to offer them. That's another piece of natural. If you don't know really what your program should be with them yet, if you're like wondering if this is actually going to help them, or you think your hammer will hit every nail in the world and it's just you're just trying to shove them into a box, you may not be ready to make the offer that will convert them because you don't necessarily know what that client needs. If you know what they need and you're feeling clear about how you're actually going to help, you can envision kind of like, okay, well, I will do some of this, we'll do some of that. And I can see how we're going to get there now. Now you're probably ready to make the offer. Sometimes you make that offer premature, like, oh, get them on this call, make an offer. But like, if you're not clear, you can't like do that in integrity, right? So get clear when you're clear and the conversation is naturally ready for, do you want to continue and do this on a regular basis together as a journey where we figure this out together. Now you're ready to make the offer. And do you want to continue is making an offer. Here's what it costs. Here's my program. There's lots of ways to do that, but make the transition and the offer you make just the most natural thing in the world.
Yeah. And it's just going to come over time. It's unreasonable that you would expect five strategy sessions in 10, 15, 30 even, that you're going to have this whole fluid, well-executed plan. It's going to take time, and give yourself the grace to be clunky, clumsy, to make mistakes, to say something that you're like, that was stupid. That's okay. It's going to be stupid for a while. That's okay. That's part of the process, part of the journey. You will get better. It's just a matter of how many sessions are you doing. So just do more of them.
Yeah. The simplest, absolute simplest thing to do. So like, hey, have you really enjoyed our conversation today? What have you enjoyed the most? And say like, oh, well, would you like to continue doing that for 6 months together? Because imagine where we could get you in 6 months, right?
Yeah.
That's super simple. And if they say, then shut up and say, listen. And if they say, yeah, then you say, would you like to know how we can, get started right now? And they're like, yeah. So then you say like, my program, give them the name of the program. You say, like, hey, well, we could call this based on what you said today. Love that phrase, based on what you said. I think we should call the program this, or you should do my, whatever name program, or let's create that program together right now. Let's give it a name. So here's what I recommend: 6 months together. If we do weekly or biweekly, you just count the number of sessions. It's like 24 sessions or 12 sessions or whatever it is. And it's this much. So know what your programs could be. Like approximately, like if your 6 month program is going to be this many $1,000, then just have that written down somewhere before your discovery call. So when you get to there, you're like, okay, your fully fulfilled program will be 6 months together, at the end of which you'll be a lot more fulfilled than you are today. And we'll cover all those things that we talked about.
Yeah.
And it'll be this much money.
Yeah. And also know that like, if you kind of have this normal thing that you do and like Daniel said, is kind of have an idea about how many sessions, about how much money, because if you go in completely with no idea of number of sessions, no idea how much money, I've done this before where I'm just like, bleh, and I throw out a number and I'm like, that was so low. Like, I hope they say no, because I was like, so like, I just, out of fear, I just threw out a number that felt like a no-brainer. But if I were to fulfill that, I might actually get frustrated with myself. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation, but know that there could also be bonuses. You don't say, hey, Daniel, based on our conversation today, working with me for a year, imagine where we can get after 24 sessions. And, with the Daniel Fernandes Create Awesome, program. And based on the fact that you and your wife are both entrepreneurs and you're both working hard at building a life for you and your family, I will even throw in 3 bonus sessions for you and your wife to be able to grow closer and to create a more unified path forward in the Daniel Fernandes Awesomeness program. Like, you can just throw those things in, as you hear them talk, throw in some bonuses. What the heck?
I love that. You would actually say like, hey, in terms of bonuses, would this be a good bonus for you? Like, you can say like, would you be interested in that as a bonus? And sometimes I offer clients a special bonus depending if their needs match what I can deliver. And so here's a bonus that I might offer for you. Would you be interested in that? You could do that. You could also just say like, here's how much it costs, and then say like, would you like to sign up right now? Yeah. And they could say yes. And if they say no, then you can get into all the objection handling and all that, or maybe it's not right for them. But if you're making the offer, you can tell it's right for them already. Usually, hopefully you feel it. You honestly feel it's right for them, not just right for you.
Yeah.
And that's the differentiator. Once you know it's right for them, like, just natural transition. So make sure you have a way to accept the money. So 2 things before every discovery session you do. If you're gonna have a chance to make an offer, because you can't know for sure that you're gonna make an offer, know how much you're gonna charge and know how you're gonna collect the money, because you might be able to do it on the call. Yeah. Ideally, you do it right on the call or the second call or whatever call it is that you do with them, and test that ahead of time.
Yeah, perfect. All right. So we trust that you got at least one nugget that's actionable for you, that will either help change your perspective on something, and then will end up changing your actions and behaviors on something. Because you are a coach. If you're listening to this, you are a coach, or you are aspiring to be a coach, and you're working through that process. And we want to make sure that you get the opportunity to have the impact in the world that you are at this point designed to do. And we believe that the world needs a lot of positivity, and you could be part of that. So we want to support and help you in whatever way that looks like for you.
Yeah. Love it, Sheri. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for being a coach, one of the most important professions in the world. And if you want to go farther and deeper and learn more, come to our masterclass. Go to coachingmastercommunity.com. Join our Facebook group, say #masterclass, email us at support@coachingmastercommunity.com, or if there's a link to register, you can just register on the website. Whichever way you get in, make sure that you come to this masterclass to up-level yourself in these strategy and discovery sessions.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.